Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into your sources and really unpacking something fundamental. It's the architecture of the incredible world of human tissues. Think of it as a shortcut, maybe, to understanding the very building blocks of our bodies. And there are some surprising facts along the way.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll look at how your body's organized, from the tiniest molecules right up to entire systems. And then we'll really zoom in on that crucial level, tissues, exploring how cells actually come together, how they form these specialized fabrics that let us live and move and, well, interact with everything.
Okay, let's get into it. Because when we think about the body, it's easy to jump straight to, organs, heart, brain, whatever, or the big systems.
Yeah.
But the real magic, like our sources point out, it starts way, way smaller. There's this amazing hierarchy.
That's exactly right. It's all about levels of organization. It really starts with molecules. These molecules form organelles, little components inside cells. Then the organelles make up cells, basic units of life. And this is key for us today. Groups of specialized cells form tissues.
Okay.
Tissues then build organs. Organs work together in systems. And finally, all those systems make up the complete organism, which is, you.
Wow.
So our deep dive today, we're focusing right on that crucial tissues level.
Okay, so cells form tissues, but how, they don't just sort of float near each other, right? How do they actually stick together and become this complex thing? Our sources talk about complex tissues and extracellular material, and they mention these things called cellular junctions.
Yeah, exactly. Cellular junctions. And what's really interesting is that these connections, they aren't always permanent. They can be transient, temporary,
Yeah.
or they can be really permanent and strong. The key players are these proteins called cell adhesion molecules, CAMs for short.
Yams, okay.
Think of them like tiny little anchors on the cell surface that connect cells to each other or to the stuff around them, the matrix. And they're different types. For example, you've got cadherins. Yeah, they're like the teeth on a zipper, basically. They create really strong cell-to-cell connections, super important for things like desmosomes, which we'll get to. And a neat little detail. They need calcium to work properly. Their strength depends on it.
Huh, interesting.
Then you have integrins. These are cool because they connect cells to the matrix, but they also act like little antennas. They receive signals from outside the cell and tell the inside what's going on.
Wow, so they're communicators too.
In a way, yes. And our selectins, these are more for quick, temporary sticking, like in your immune system. And one more, immunoglobulin superfamily CAMs, or IGSF CAMs. Really important for guiding nerve cells as your nervous system develops.
That's incredible. It's like a whole molecular toolkit just for sticking together. So, okay, they stick cells together, but what else do these junctions do? You mentioned communication, barriers.
Right, yeah. That brings up their function. We basically put them into a few categories based on their job. First, there are communicating junctions. These are maybe the simplest idea, but so important. They allow cells to talk directly and quickly. Imagine tiny channels connecting cells.
Okay.
These channels open and close, letting small molecules and ions pass right through. It allows for really fast chemical and electrical signals between cells.
So like little tunnels for messages.
Pretty much. Then you have occluding junctions, also called tight junctions.
Tight junctions.
These are like seals.
Yeah.
The membranes of neighboring cells actually partially fuse together. It creates a barrier, their main job, to stop stuff from moving between the cells. If something wants to get past, it has to go through the cell itself.
Ah, so it forces control.
Exactly. Really vital in places like your gut, controlling what gets absorbed. And finally, anchoring junctions. These are all about strength, making tissues tough.
Where would you find those?
Places that get stretched or twisted a lot, like your skin or the lining of your body cavities. They help the tissue resist damage. The sources give a great example, actually. Think about getting a blister, from new shoes or something.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, that fluid buildup happens because those strong connections, those anchoring junctions, get broken by the stress. Things like adhesion junctions, which link up the cell's internal skeleton and especially desmosomes. These are the strongest cell-to-cell anchors, really locking cells together they can actually rupture.
Wow. So a blister is literally the tissue connections failing under stress.
Exactly. It shows you how important and how physical these connections are.
That really makes it clear. It's amazing how these tiny junctions build up to create, us. Our sources say there are 4 main types of tissues that make up the body, each with different jobs. Where should we start? Maybe the most visible one.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Let's talk about epithelial tissue, or epithelia. Think of this as the body's gatekeeper.
Gatekeeper, how so?
Well, its main job is to protect your internal environment, keep the outside out, regulate what passes between inside and outside. It covers surfaces you can see, like your skin, protecting you, keeping water in. But it also lines internal spaces, like your whole digestive tract, your airways. Basically anything that enters or leaves your body, hormones, sweat, nutrients, waste, it has to cross an epithelium.
So it's not just a passive layer, it's actively controlling traffic.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And structurally, they're distinct. They're made of one or more layers of cells packed tightly together. And they sit on this thin, non-cellular layer called the basal lamina. It's like the foundation connecting them to the tissue underneath.
Okay.
And within epithelia, you get lots of specialization. For instance, exchange epithelium. Think lungs, blood vessels. The cells here are incredibly thin, flat, allows gases like oxygen and CO2 to pass through really fast. The specific type lining your heart and blood vessels even has its own name, endothelium.
Thin for easy exchange. Makes sense.
Then you have transporting epithelium. This lines tubes like in your digestive system or kidneys. This type is all about actively moving stuff. Ions, nutrients, not gases. Absorption is moving things from outside, like the gut, into your body. Secretion is moving things out, from the body into the gut or kidney tubule. And crucially, remember those tight junctions?
Yeah, the seal.
They force substances to go through these cells, not around them.
Yeah.
That allows for very precise control over what gets transported.
Right, like grabbing specific nutrients. What else?
Well, there's ciliated epithelium. This type doesn't really transport things through the cells. Instead, it moves stuff across the surface.
How does it do that?
It's covered in tiny hairs called cilia. They beat together, in rhythm, like little oars. It lines your airways, parts of the female reproductive tract. They push mucus, debris, or eggs along.
Ah, like sweeping things clean.
Exactly. And our sources mention how damage to these cilia, say from cigarette smoke, can really mess things up. It impairs that cleaning action in your lungs.
Yeah, you hear about that.
Next up, protective epithelium. Name says it all. Designed to prevent exchange, protect areas from physical stress or chemicals. Your skin's outer layer, the epidermis, is a classic example. Linings of your mouth, esophagus too. These are often layered, stratified for extra toughness. They can even be reinforced with keratin, that tough protein.
Like waterproofing and armor?
Sort of, yeah. And interestingly, things like retinoic acid, related to vitamin A, can actually speed up cell division here, helping renew the tissue faster.
Cool. Okay, one more type of epithelium.
The last big category is secretory epithelium. These are cells specialized to make and release substances. They form glands.
Glands. Okay.
Two main types. First, endocrine glands. These are ductless. They release their products, usually hormones, directly into your bloodstream. Think of your pancreas making insulin or your thyroid making thyroid hormones. These hormones travel through the blood to act on distant parts of the body.
The body's long-distance messengers.
Exactly. Then you have exocrine glands. Most of these release their stuff through tubes, called ducts, either onto your body surface or into a cavity that opens outside. So sweat glands, mammary glands, salivary glands, even parts of the liver and pancreas act as exocrine glands, releasing digestive juices.
So pancreas does both, endocrine and exocrine.
It does. It's a mixed gland, and these exocrine secretions can be watery or serious like tears or digestive enzymes, or they can be thick and sticky, mucus, like the mucus in your nose.
Wow, that's a lot of variety just in epithelial tissue, covering, exchanging, transporting, protecting, secreting. Okay, so that's the gatekeeper layer. What about the tissues that provide the structure, the support beams and padding?
Right, that would be connective tissue. And it's fundamentally different from epithelia. Instead of tightly packed cells, connective tissue is mostly extracellular matrix. That's the non-living stuff around the cells.
The matrix, okay.
Yeah, this matrix is made of fibers, like proteins. Key ones are collagen, elastin, fibrillin, and fibronectin. Collagen is huge. It's about a third of your body's dry weight. It's incredibly strong, gives structure and elasticity. Think skin, bones, tendons.
So it's like the body's internal scaffolding.
Absolutely. It provides the framework and strength. And there's several kinds of connective tissue. You have loose connective tissue. It's more elastic, found under your skin, supporting glands, that sort of thing. Then there's dense connective tissue. This is packed with collagen for strength and flexibility. This is where you find tendons, connecting muscle to bone, and ligaments, connecting bone to bone.
Ah, ligaments. That's where those sports injuries often happen, right? You mentioned Neymar's ACL, Ronaldo's knee.
Exactly. Ligaments have some elastic fibers so they can stretch a bit, but too much force and they tear. It really highlights how crucial these dense connective tissues are for just moving around safely.
Definitely brings it home. What other kinds of connective tissue?
Well, there's adipose tissue. That's fat, made of fat cells. or adipocytes. The most common type in adults is white adipose tissue. Each cell has one big lipid droplet. We think of it for energy storage, padding, insulation.
Right.
But, and this is important, it also acts like an endocrine organ. It releases hormones that affect appetite, metabolism, lots of things.
Wow. So fat isn't just passive storage, it's actively talking to the body.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Then there's brown adipose tissue, less common in adults, more in babies. Its cells have lots of small lipid droplets and tons of mitochondria. That's what makes it look brown. Its main job isn't storing energy, but burning it to generate heat. Helps regulate body temp, energy use, even blood sugar.
Fascinating. Okay, what else counts as connective tissue?
Cartilage, that firm, flexible stuff in your nose, ears, joints like the knee, your windpipe. It's strong but bendy.
Yeah.
One key thing, it has a really poor blood supply.
Which is why cartilage injuries heal so slowly.
Exactly. Takes a long time for nutrients and repair cells to get there. And finally, maybe surprisingly, blood.
Blood. How is blood connective tissue?
Well, it fits the definition. It has cells suspended in an extensive extracellular matrix. The matrix is the plasma, mostly water, with dissolved ions, proteins, nutrients, and the cells are your red cells, white cells, platelets, all floating in that plasma. Its job is connection, transporting things everywhere.
Huh. I never thought of blood that way, but it makes sense when you put it like that. It connects everything.
No.
Okay, so we've got the coverings and linings, epithelial, and the structure and support, connective. What about the tissues that let us react and move, the active parts?
Right, those are the excitable tissues. They're called that because they can generate and transmit electrical signals.
Electrical signals, so muscles and nerves.
Precisely. First, muscle tissue. Its job is contraction, creating force, producing movement. 3 types. Cardiac muscle in the heart, smooth muscle in internal organs like your gut and blood vessels, and skeletal muscle attached to your bones for voluntary movement.
So every heartbeat, every digestion rumble, every step you take, that's muscle tissue at work.
Yep, driven by electrical signals. The other excitable tissue is nervous tissue. This is made of neurons, the nerve cells themselves. They're incredible signal transmitters using both chemical and electrical signals. They're concentrated mostly in your brain and spinal cord, the body's control center. And supporting the neurons are the glia cells, or neuroglia. They don't send the main signals, but they're essential for supporting, insulating, and nourishing the neurons.
It's just incredible, the specialization. 4 basic types, but they do everything. If we just step back and compare them quickly, what are the key differences?
Okay, quick comparison. Epithelial. Minimal matrix. Cells tightly packed, often no direct blood supply. Covers surfaces, lines cavities, forms glands. Gatekeeper role.
On it.
Connective. Extensive matrix. Cells usually spread out. Varied blood supply, porn cartilage. Provides support, structure, transport, blood. The framework.
Makes sense.
Muscle, minimal matrix, cells often elongated, specialized for contraction, generates force and movement, electrically excitable. The movers, nervous. Minimal matrix, cells have long extensions, neurons, specialized for generating and transmitting electrical signals, communication, and control. The controllers.
That's a great summary. It all sounds so perfectly designed, almost static. But our bodies aren't static, are they? They're changing all the time.
Absolutely not static. That's a really important point. Your body is constantly undergoing remodeling. Cells are born, they mature, they do their job, they get old or damaged, and then they die and get replaced. It's a continuous cycle.
Constant turnover.
Exactly. It keeps tissues healthy, functional, allows for growth and repair.
So what happens when cells die? Is it always like messy, a cellular explosion?
It can be messy. If a cell dies from a severe injury, like lack of oxygen or toxins, it can lead to necrosis. In necrosis, the cell basically bursts, spilling its contents, and that causes inflammation. It's uncontrolled death.
Okay, the messy kind.
But there's another way, a much cleaner, controlled way. It's called apoptosis, programmed cell death.
Programmed, like it's on purpose.
Exactly. It's intentional and highly regulated. The cell gets signals telling it its time is up. It then activates a self-destruct sequence. But instead of exploding, it shrinks, breaks down its own components, and packages everything neatly into little membrane-bound bubbles called apoptotic bodies.
Little packages.
Yeah, and then other cells, phagocytes, come along and basically eat those packages. Clean disposal, no mess, no inflammation.
That's amazing, like cellular recycling.
It really is. And apoptosis isn't just for getting rid of old cells. It's crucial during development. Think about when you were an embryo. Your hands and feet started out as solid paddles.
Right.
Apoptosis is what carves out the spaces between your fingers and toes. Programmed cell death sculpts your body.
Wow, that is truly mind-blowing. So cell death is actually a creative force too. From those tiny little cams holding cells together to the huge variety of epithelial tissues, the structural web of connective tissue, the excitable nature of muscle and nerve, and then this constant programmed dance of renewal and death. It really shows our bodies are these incredible dynamic masterpieces of organization. It's wild to think all these parts create something so complex and resilient.
It really is. And understanding these basic tissue levels,
Mm.
I think, gives you a much deeper appreciation for your own body, for physiology. You realize that, every single thing you do, every breath, every movement, every thought, it all depends on the coordinated work of these amazing, often invisible tissues.
So maybe something for you to think about for your next deep dive. What hidden connections, what incredible tissue functions are happening inside you right this second that you've never even considered?
Yeah. The answer is probably more fascinating than we can even imagine.